Hey guys, everything new under the sun here. Now this is a significant story that we've been following for a long time, all of us, and many news sites, and it's all about the US dollar, the greenback, that will eventually all return to the continental United States as people dump it. So right now, Saudi Arabia, China, pretty much every country in the world holds US dollars for some reason. The US buys oil in US dollars, and so does the rest of the world currently, for the most part. That's called the petrodollar. That dollar, however, was printed out of thin air. It's not worth anything. So when people recognize when confidence starts being lost in the economy in the US dollar, they will start trying to sell off their US dollars in exchange for something tangible. They will start making use of the store of US dollars that they have. And they have trillions of dollars, US dollars. And now we see this article here that there's further liquidation of US dollars, basically. Saudi's China dump treasuries. Foreign central banks liquidate a record $375 billion in US paper. They're trying to dump it now before it's absolutely worthless, effectively. The article says, 1 month ago, when we looked at the Fed's updates of Treasury held in custody, we noted something troubling. The number had dropped sharply, declining by over $22 billion in 1 week. One of the biggest weekly declines since January 2015, pushing the total amount of custodial paper to $2.8 trillion, the lowest since 2012. A month later, we refreshed this chart to find out last week's update. Foreign central banks continued their relentless liquidation of U.S. paper held in Fed's custody account, which tumbled by another $14 billion over the course of the week, pushing the total of custodial paper to $2.7 trillion. And there's an article here, treasuries held in custody at the Fed in billions. Today we corroborate the disturbing weekly slide in the Fed's custody data. We also got the latest monthly Treasury international capital data for the month of September, which showed the troubling trend presented 1 month ago has accelerated. And again, the issue here is that not only that is confidence being lost in the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency, and that people are getting rid of it, so it's not going to be as valuable on the market. They're sending it all back to the U.S., and what's going to happen with all those extra dollars in the U.S.? Well, they're going to get into the money supply and basically cause inflation and potentially hyperinflation because there's more dollars around in the U.S. floating around chasing after the same asset. People are going to be willing to spend a bit more because they now have a bit more cash that came back from other countries. They're going to be willing to spend a bit more on products and services. That's going to raise the price of products and services for everybody because now there's a bit of a bidding war. If you want that asset before the next guy, you're going to be willing to pay a bit more for it. So then we get into a vicious cycle of dollars returning to the U.S. and hyperinflation setting off. And this is kind of the precursor to hyperinflation, where the money, the dollars are repatriated, come back to the U.S. and start that. So this is why we're watching the liquidation of U.S. dollars and foreign currencies, basically getting rid of the U.S. Paper dollar. Among the biggest sellers on a market price basis, not surprisingly, was China, which in August sold $28 billion of U.S. paper. The actual underlying number may be different, as this particular series is adjusted for mark-to-market variations. Bring its total to $1.157 trillion, the lowest amount of U.S. paper held by Beijing since 2012. Now, obviously, if they were smart, and I think they are smart, they will slowly get rid of U.S. paper. They won't get rid of it all at once, obviously, because then the whole thing will blow up and the U.S. dollar will be worthless. They got to try and get rid of it a little bit at a time so the value of it doesn't go down too sharply, and so they can still get assets for that same value. And the U.S. does not like this, obviously. It wasn't just China. Saudi Arabia also continued to sell its holdings. In August, its stated holdings dropped from $93 billion to $89 billion, so they're starting to get into the game and getting real assets for their greenback, I assume. This was the 8th consecutive month of treasury sales by the kingdom, which held $124 billion in January. And of course, this is related to the whole 9/11. People being able to sue Saudi Arabia that Obama put in there, and Saudi Arabia's threat, and they wanted Obama to stop the ability of Americans to sue Saudi Arabia for the 9/11 events. they threatened that they would sell their U.S. Treasury, their U.S. Stock, their stock of U.S. Dollars, and I would assume they are also smart, and they're going to slowly be trying to get rid of U.S. dollars as well. China is also devaluing the yuan, so there's economic warfare happening, certainly, and lots of trouble in the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. A lot of confidence being lost here, so it bodes, in one way it bodes badly for the U.S. But will it be offset by the massive oil discovery found in the U.S., which I think probably comes directly from Trump as the nation head, shortly elect anyways, blessing Israel and stating that Jerusalem should be Israel's capital. So we'll see how it turns out, but I want to bring it to your attention. It's significant. We need to keep watching this one.